What's up, everybody? It's your boy Killia. We back with another video today. Welcome to This Versus That, episode 2, the debate series where we coming together, we pick a subject, and we gonna talk it out. You feel me? This is the show where I am always right. Right. Cool.
Yeah.
Today here, I have a special guest. You feel me? Let's go from left to right, which I don't know how I'm finna do the video version of this, but it is what it is. We gonna go with my boy Jay. How you doing, Jay? Say what's up to the people.
What's up, people? How y'all doing? How you feeling?
We got my boy Jeremy. Go ahead, say hello.
No, y'all know he's gonna be wrong in this video. So
I ain't gonna be wrong. This is my video. We got my boy Modesty. Wait, what did you want to be called, sir?
Modesty is cool.
Modesty, my boy Modesty. He's a returning figure.
Indeed, I am.
And we got my boy Speckham here for the first time.
Hey, what's going on? Glad to be here.
As you can tell by the title of this video, we will be debating who is the best Spider-Man actor. Everything goes for this debate. For the next hour, we will be here, and I will prove to y'all niggas why Tom Holland is the best Spider-Man.
This is Cat.
Any objections? We can go into a little detail. We can go into the story. We can go to the powers. We can go to just like the overall like presence of the character. It is what it is. It is what it is. So, who want to start the icing? Who want to start cutting this cake? You feel me? Who want to start cutting?
Okay, let me say this one thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't personally believe that there are between Tom Holland, Andrew Garfield, and Tobey Maguire. I don't think any of them are bad, but clearly one is the superior Spider-Man. But that doesn't make the other two bad.
I mean, Tobey's
I don't
cringy.
think that's what we're arguing, that one is bad. I just want to let that be known before I give my opinions out.
Tobey's
I don't
cringy.
think any of them are bad.
no, he's not.
Yes, he is.
No, he's not.
Yes, he is. We'll talk about that though.
You said I'm capping? You said that's
No. I said Toby. I said Tobey is cringy. Tobey is cringy. Tobey Maguire is cringy. But we'll talk about that.
Oh, okay.
As one of the returning people, allow me to also point out that in this whole debate, I'm actually neutral. I know I'm typically the one that's mainly doing the debates with Kid Leo, but for this one, they're actually going to be trying to convince me.
Oh, is that right? Is that right? Well, sir, Tom Holland is the best. There's nothing else to be said. Speckham boy, what you think? What you thinking? What you thinking over there?
All right, I'm thinking it's Tom Holland. Like, hands down, it's Tom Holland.
He knows. He knows.
Yeah, it's got to be Tom. Like, don't get me wrong. I think Tobey was great, but Tobey came out in the 2000s, and we were wildly different people in the 2000s. You feel me? Compared to now, Tobey Maguire Spider-Man would not work today.
That's what I'm saying, bro. I'm telling you, he's so, bro. I'm telling you, Tobey is so cringy. So, but what do y'all want to talk about first? Y'all want to talk about the overall? There's each Spider-Man stories. Do y'all want to talk about like how the actors like fare up in comparison to like any other version of Spider-Man, or what y'all want to talk about first?
Probably do the stories first. I'm gonna keep it a buck because that whole comparing actors thing might take a while.
Okay, well, in terms of like Tobey, y'all want to start with Tobey? You want to start with the one I think is not the best Spider-Man at all? That
Might as well start with that OG nigga.
well, I say this right now. I think people only like Tobey because of nostalgia, but it's nostalgia. Nostalgia drives you guys to liking Tobey, but
I don't think Tobey was bad, man. You know, it's just he wasn't a good Spider-Man, but he was a pretty damn good Peter Parker.
How do I feel? James, are you there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Oh, how do I feel about that?
I can agree with that though. I like him more as Peter than I did Spider-Man.
I think the general consensus is like Tobey is a good Peter Parker, but not a good Spider-Man. Andrew is like the vice versa of that, and Tom is like just the best of both worlds.
Okay, I think we should. Here's what I would like to ask. Can you be a good Spider-Man and be like lacking in the Peter Parker department, or vice versa, or do you have to have both?
I think when an actor is playing a superhero role, that their job is to embody both personas. So I think you do need to. I think you do need to be good at both. I think you do need to be good at both. I don't think you should just have one or the other, because if that's the case, then like if we only had to go by the Spider-Man persona, like by itself, I would say Andrew is the best. I would say Andrew Garfield is the best if we want to go by the Spider-Man persona.
Like
Just that
Spider-Man
alone.
was?
Like just that persona alone. I would say Andrew is the best.
Yeah,
But
I would have to agree.
yeah, but I think we should go by both personas. I don't think it should just be one.
Yep. I remember when I first watched the Amazing Spider-Man 2, that opening sequence, that
The
alone.
opening sequence.
Bro, that boy
Yeah,
just
that was-
dove out the sky, boy. I was like, hold on. But yeah, I think we should go by both personas. That's cool.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
So I want to hear from a Toby stan, mostly James. I want to hear from a Toby stan.
Okay,
why
here's
you
my
making
thing.
Toby the best?
Here's my thing. Now, I've been a big fan of Batman, right? And
Okay.
one of the biggest things about Batman is not him necessarily alone as a character, is the lore that he has. Is like the environment he's in, Gotham City, the people he interacts with, his villains, everything. It's his lore, right? And Spider-Man is kind of like the same way. He's clearly not Batman. They're like night and day differences, but the Spider-Man fans love the Spider-Man lore. Like they love the Spider-Man and Mary Jane and his villains especially J. Jonah Jameson and the lore, the world that Spider-Man is in. And I
Okay.
feel like Tom Holland, you don't really have that like you do with Toby. With Toby, you had J. Jonah Jameson in all three of the movies. Aunt May is appropriate for her age. I don't know why Tom Holland's Aunt May looks like his older sister.
Hey man, you don't like him young? What's wrong with liking him young? You don't like him young, bro? I'm like,
I'm
dang,
saying
she's bad.
the Spider-Man lore in the Toby universe or the original Spider-Man trilogy, I feel it fits better. And his Peter Parker too. And the reason why I asked that question about the Peter Parker, can you be a good Spider-Man without being a good Peter Parker, is because in the comic books and in the movies, we all saw Peter Parker had a very difficult time with his social life. His social life was struggling almost all the time. But with Toby, with Tom, you don't really see that. I mean, you see him have a crush and he's a little like awkward around her sometimes, but you don't really see any like social struggle like that. He's pretty much cool.
I kind of think that's
Toby,
cap.
you see it all in all three movies. You see crazy social struggles and that's separated from his Spider-Man struggles too. So I feel like you get like the total package with Toby Spider-Man.
I kind of think that's cap. When you said that you don't see that for Tom Holland Spider-Man, I kind of think that's cap. I think you do see his struggles as Peter Parker. You see them actually in line with his struggles as Spider-Man too. I was actually just talking to somebody about this last night. But the example I brought up was Vulture in Homecoming, when how he liked his daughter and he found out that her dad is like a super villain. You don't think that has an effect on like his Peter Parker life? Or like you don't think that him, or like when he when he told everybody that he knew Spider-Man and Spider-Man would be at that party that she threw at her house, you don't think that has an effect on his Peter Parker life?
Okay. It does. I'll give you that. But my thing when I say Spider-Man struggle is okay. That's really the only part that you saw his social life interacting with his Spider-Man life.
Well, I think it's because freaking Tom Holland's story is different. Tom Holland's Spider-Man story is different from Tobey Maguire's story, because Tom Holland's story is a coming of age story. It's not a traditional, like, how do I say this? The point of Tom Holland's Spider-Man so far in the MCU, it's him becoming a hero. Well, I would say at least up till Far From Home. I think when Far From Home came, his coming of age story was kind of like, it's not, Far From Home is not really coming of age, but I think like Homecoming, Civil War, Infinity War, and even, you know, the little bit you see him in game, whatever. I think that those all like go into his coming of age story, because the point of Tom Holland Spider-Man, he's trying to become like, he's trying to become the greatest hero, not the greatest hero, like a great hero, trying to work with the Avengers. He's trying to do this. Like, it's a coming age story. Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, he's not trying to necessarily like become an Avenger or anything like that. He's just like kind of going around just doing his own thing as Spider-Man. Like, it's not.
Kind of pause. I know I'm sort of neutral on this, but I will say that the fact that he is trying to become more of an Avenger or trying to be just like Tony takes more away from his character as Peter.
I don't think it does.
The reason why is it becomes a constant story of Peter living up to Tony and not about Peter himself.
Well, that's what it was in Far From Home. That's definitely what it was in Far From Home. But I wouldn't say it was for any of the other movies.
Yeah,
He's only had two.
Yeah, because I would say that as far as comparing Tom to Toby as Peter Parker, it's like I agree with Kid Leo here. It's completely different. I mean, shoot, the originals was like almost a carbon copy of the original. Peter Parker's broke. Peter Parker's an orphan. He gets bullied a lot. You don't see that because, I mean, it's a modern Spider-Man setting. And it's got to fit that. Like everybody, even his bully was smart. Flash was an idiot in the comics and in the Tobey Maguire films. Plus, Aunt May being younger, I mean, all the movies take inspiration from the Ultimate Comics, and Aunt May was pretty young in the Ultimate Comics too.
Yeah, like like in the Ultimate Universe, she was going out having fun and all that. Like she was like the young auntie. She trying to party type auntie. Yeah, like she was that kind of auntie in the Ultimate Comics. But yeah, I agree.
Okay, now my thing is, and I don't disagree with the fact that this is almost like a different story for Spider-Man. They're not trying to play the same Spider-Man role, if that makes sense.
As they should not.
They're at like different stages in their heroism.
Yeah.
But my argument for Toby is that one of the key aspects of Spider-Man and one of the things that made Spider-Man stand out so much was the fact that you got to see more of his character beyond being a superhero. His social life was a very key aspect in his character, which is one of the things that makes Spider-Man stand out so much. And with Toby, you got to see like this is a kid who he's struggling to make any bit of money. He has the Daily Bugle, but you know, that's not really cutting it. He has a social life, a girl he likes, but you know, he can't tell her he's Spider-Man, and he's always missing and late and stuff. The original key aspects that people loved about Spider-Man, Toby had.
So let me ask you a question.
And I get that's a different age, and we're probably not entertained by the same things that we were 10 years ago. This generation is probably not going to be entertained by the same things they were in 2002.
So let me ask you something. So out of any of those aspects that you just said, what is it that Tom does not have? You said his
Jonah Jameson.
He does in Far From Home now, actually. So
that he showed up in the end credits at the end.
But he's canon in the universe, though. He's canon in the universe.
I do gotta add though, cause this is my favorite hero. Spider-Man's my favorite hero. We talking about here. Yeah. So James, I gotta correct something you said, or not add to something you said. Spider-Man has always been that hero that's relatable. Super, and I'm not saying like all of a sudden all the poor people in the world disappeared or something like that. You know, I mean, everybody out here struggling still, but what's relatable back then isn't the same as what's relatable right now. And I think Tom Holland is more relatable to a lot of people today than the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man would be
Even-
to people today.
And then even then, bro, what was Toby relatable to y'all back there? Bro, we were like 5. We were like
Yeah, that's
5.
a good point.
Well,
I
he shouldn't have been relatable to y'all.
Well, yeah, of course we young, you know, like I mean that's different, but I can definitely relate more to Toby now than I can like Tom, especially like even if I did like an age comparison, like
Whoa.
me being Tom
If-
age
oh,
or in
if
the
we-
movie.
Well, let's also take for
If
the
we're gonna be honest, what makes Tom relatable?
what makes Tom
I
I think you
besides
need
the
to
fact
I
that
think
he's
you need
in
to
high
go
school?
I think
Yeah, I
you
agree.
need to go back to the high schools. None of us if you're wondering in this video, none of us are in high school, right? I think you need to go back to that high school self. Put yourself in like you need to ask yourself, were you in like similar situations that Tom was in his movies? Like you need to ask yourself that. Like he had like Tom throughout the course of like pretty much all his movies, he's had some type of pressure coming from some type of source that he needs to like step up and like do big. That's a lot of pressure. He's trying to be the hero, he's trying to be the guy, he's trying to like always be ready, he's trying to always be there, you know what I'm saying, when he's needed. That's that. So are you telling me that's not relatable? Have you never felt like that in your life?
You're being too broad. You're not really bringing up specific instances though.
What do you okay, how about in like
because his biggest struggle was the fact that the girl he was dating, her father was a supervillain. That's not
that was not his biggest struggle. In Homecoming, a lot of things happen in Homecoming. If you're talking about Homecoming, so a lot of things happen in Homecoming. In Homecoming, he also was like literally ditching out on like anything school related because he was waiting on Iron Man to call him. He like that. That's what I'm saying. He's trying to be ready for whenever he is needed. You know, so he can be on a call. So he's making like these sacrifices so he can be ready.
Say he's sacrificing
But
like
how is
he's
that-
sacrificing like his school life, his personal life
Yes.
to be a superhero.
Yes.
I can't relate to that. I ain't no damn superhero.
Well, of course,
No,
but
I
come on
mean,
now. Like
the
if
thing is that you make it seem like he's sacrificing that, but
he is,
Tony wasn't calling him though.
Tony wasn't
He
calling
was
him.
He was pretty much at the door, like, hey, anytime you need me, I'm right here.
Right, but he
It's not
wanted.
like he was in class and then Tony called him and he had to get up and leave.
You're right, but that was more so like the anticipation. That's what he was like always being ready to like sacrifice. He's like, okay, I can't do this. He says multiple times throughout the movie, I can't do this because if Tony Stark calls me, I gotta go do this. He says that like multiple times throughout the movie.
Yeah, he does sacrifice a lot of his social life just to be at the ready in case Tony calls.
Yeah.
Even still, though, how
Okay,
is it
okay.
different?
Do you think he
Wait,
sacrificed more of his social life than Toby though?
Hold on.
I'm not. Oh, what's
Wait,
that?
hold on. Wait. What did you want to say, Nova?
I was basically saying, even you're saying that he's having to go through all these social sacrifices, but how is that any different from what Tobey Maguire has had to do?
No,
I'm not
but
saying.
the thing
No.
is, that's a little bit of a disconnect. Nobody's saying that Toby didn't. We're
Yeah.
just saying that the gap between the two having that in their lives is not as big as y'all making it out to look.
What exactly? Like James, you were saying like that. Toby has all these other different aspects of his life that he had to like sacrifice. He had this, he had that. What did Toby have that Tom didn't have? Like what like
Relationship,
you said what?
a committed relationship.
A committed relation. Did Toby have did they
No,
become
Toby-
like an official
okay,
couple
listen.
in like any of the like of course they did at the end of 3. No, I think they became a couple.
At the end of 3, he did, but I don't know if you want to bring that
No,
up
no.
because then Tom Holland didn't kiss another girl in front of him. It was like 100,000 people.
Wait, well, he did actually no. Him and Mary Jane they did become a couple at the end of 2. At the end of 2, and they were a couple in the beginning of 3. Then they broke up. So you're saying he didn't have a committed relationship? I mean, he kind of does in Far From Home at the end. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Barely.
He does barely.
Yeah.
That's his girl. What do you mean? That's his girl. He didn't cop Zendaya. He didn't cop Top.
He's on the streets.
But you know what?
Hey, hold on.
We've been leaving Andrew out of this whole conversation.
Okay. Let's be fair. Let's talk about Andrew. I'll probably say this right now. I believe that Andrew has like I think when it comes to like his story, you said what?
I think he had the best emotional acting, but that could be because the others haven't exactly had to go through that same tragedy that he did in his second movie.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah, because I feel like the whole thing with like George Stacy making him promise not to, to leave Gwen out of that type of stuff, and then he decided not to at the end, which to me was a very not Peter Parker thing to do, by the way.
Big facts.
And then it could have been something pretty good if they had a third movie after Gwen's death, but then we got that whack scene at the end with the Rhino that kind of even if they made a third movie, that ruined all of that.
That's
right
what
there.
I'm saying,
yeah.
bro. Like McKenna, like that. I think that was their first steps into trying to get into like a modernization. Nobody wanted to see a big jack dude in a skin tight suit.
Well, I think that's not super uncommon for Rhino. I think in the Ultimate Universe, there's a version. Yeah, he wears a robot suit.
The fact that he was in this, because the fact that he was in a suit or armor, whatever it is, that didn't bother people. It's the fact that in all, and I do mean ALL of the advertisements, they made it seem like Rhino was an actual villain in the movie. They made it seem like he was a character in the movie.
But like,
and he did not show. You did not see him until the very 30 seconds before the credits started rolling.
No, he was like in the beginning of that movie. Like he was like he didn't have the suit. He was just like a regular guy. He got arrested.
Yeah, he was.
But like what I was talking about, what ruined that at the end was like, okay, Gwen dies after he decided, nothing bad can happen. I don't have to make that promise. And then exactly what her dad was afraid of happens and Gwen dies. We get like a 30-second montage of him moping over her grave. And next thing you know, he's back to normal. Like nothing happened. Like,
I ain't gonna lie.
I know that it's kind of hard to slap Andrew Garfield with that because that's the fault of whoever wrote that script.
Yeah,
but
I think has his like overall like story arc for his character. He kind of just has the same thing Toby has. He has the Uncle Ben story. I will call Toby's movies literally the Uncle Ben story, and same for Andrew Garfield. They're the Uncle Ben story. They just got the Uncle Ben story.
Though admittedly, I do think and appreciate the fact that Tobey Maguire's movies have also brought in his connection with the Osborns as both as Spider-Man and as Peter Parker.
I do feel that, bro. I really do.
That is huge. That is one thing that the Tom Holland movies lack, which I think it suffers from being tied into the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yeah, not having Harry Osborn.
Well, yeah, they don't really have a Harry Osborn. Well, I mean, you gotta work with that.
Not yet, anyway.
Well, I
mean, and even if you added a Harry, the thing that made Harry the thing that made the Green Goblin, especially in the first one, and just the Osborns in general, so well in the Tobey universe was the fact that in the beginning of the movie, you saw Peter was very close to the Osborns. From like the very beginning, you could kind of tell he grew up with them.
Yeah,
that's the best.
If you introduce them in Tom's universe, you're not gonna get the same connection because Tom would just have now been meeting him.
That's not necessarily true.
You can't act as if, because Tom already kind of has a best friend though.
He has net. He ain't big no more. If you seen the picture of him, he ain't big no more.
But you know what, low key, if comic how close it follows the comic continuity counts, then as far as the Osborn story goes, Tom Holland Spider-Man is starting off on the right foot because Peter never met Harry or Harry at all until college.
Yeah, and I think, how do I say this? I think when it comes to Tom Holland's verse, like his MCU, where it's going like with his story, they still have a lot that they can introduce. Like, because I'm not saying that you don't. The thing that people like associate with is like because they haven't seen it, it's just not there. Like people like to discredit like Uncle Ben. There's no Uncle Ben in Tom Holland Spider-Man. That's not necessarily true. Just because you haven't seen it doesn't mean it hasn't happened. And I know like the Marvel writers, they went out on a limb and it was just like, yeah, we're not gonna tell the death of Uncle Ben in like at least like the first movie, because like what happened. We've all seen these Spider-Man movies. We all seen this old man die like every movie. Yeah, oh my god. But like, you know what I'm saying? I don't think just because they have a lot of room left to introduce. And keep in mind, like, he's only in high school. You know what I'm saying? You still have his college years. You still have after college. You know what I'm saying? I think Toby was in high school in the first movie, and by the third movie, he was in college. So
actually, he was in college in this. I think by the end of the first movie, he was in college.
Yeah,
really?
Yeah, he was leaving high school in the first movie, in the beginning. Of the first movie.
Wasn't there a graduation scene?
Yeah, there was, and then him and Harry got that apartment together. Because I remember that's where that hilarious scene with Norman trying to eat that food.
Yeah. You're right. But I think I don't think saying that like just because we haven't seen like these classic characters that we all know, you know what I'm saying? I don't think just because we haven't seen them, that doesn't mean like their story arcs won't be introduced. But like, I don't think that makes Tom Holland's story bad either. I think what we have for Tom Holland's story is fine, which like I said before, is just a coming of age story.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie to you. Tom Holland gets some cheap points for me, a lot of cheap points for me, for having his movies having recreated some of the best Spider-Man moments, like lifting all that rubble off him. Come on, Spider-Man. Yes. Come on, Spider-Man. Oh, that was. They did like the little
homage to the train scene in Spider-Man 2 with the boat, even though he failed with the boat.
Yeah. Tom Holland, I think he kind of embodied a lot of moments, and he took a decent amount of character. I'm not gonna lie, there was a lot of character traits from Peter Parker that Tobey Maguire embodies more, but I don't think it's enough of them to give him the points over, especially since I think Tom Holland's Spider-Man is more of a Spider-Man than Tobey Maguire's was. Because let's be real, every time I heard Toby try to make a Spider-Man-like pun in those old movies, it was
cringy.
Cringe.
It was cringy. It was
did
cringy.
Not carry it at all. Yeah, it
Tobey
didn't really work.
Maguire is cringy. He's cringy. I don't like as Peter Parker and as Spider-Man. He's cringy.
No.
What you mean no, James?
We're not gonna do that.
Do I need to roll the clip, bro? Do I need to roll the clip?
I can give Spider-Man. I can say his Spider-Man. Yeah, he has some cringy lines as Spider-Man, but you're gonna say his Spider-Man and his Peter was just totally cringy. That's cap.
So let's go back to the dance scene in Spider-Man 3. Let's go back to not dig on this.
I was just about to say, as Peter Parker, that was the only cringe thing he did. All right, but
that might be though. You might be able to actually throw that blame on the writers and not so much so on Toby himself.
I mean, but
yeah, I was just about to say.
Regardless, he still had to do it. You know what I'm saying?
Completely changing his personality. So that's not even how Peter Parker in his universe acts.
Well, it doesn't have to be just because it's changed his personality. It doesn't have to be cringy. It does not have to be cringy. And even then, like. Are you telling me that like whenever you tell me you can't think of no Peter Parker moments for Toby where he was cringy? Because I can. I can. He doesn't even have to have the suit on.
I can say like as his Spider-Man shirt, but I thought he was busting the move when he came out there with that fit, boy. He got the rolling his hands, boy. He was getting it, bro. Maybe when he got into the bar, you could say it was crazy.
Bro, you saw unlike the people he was walking past, they looking at him like, what is this nigga doing?
Hey, first of all, that female looked back at him, all right?
Yeah.
Also, technically, because Peter was so socially awkward, that actually fits in his character for him to be cringy.
You know, that's fair, but the only thing I guess because we're just talking about Peter as cringy, not Toby as Spider-Man, just like Toby as Peter's cringe, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that's fair. Because like some of the cringe, it's like you got to differentiate it between he's cringy because he's socially awkward and he's cringy because that's what the script demands. Because some of that stuff was like, it wasn't like he was interacting with anybody else. It was just you and the viewers and him, and he was kind of cringing all over the place.
I think
which is why I argue that Electro from Amazing Spider-Man 2 would have gone better in Tobey's universe.
How does that wait? I'm confused. How does that correlate?
Because of the cringiness.
What?
When Jamie Foxx played that
no.
cringy.
Well, no,
I get
that's
what you're saying.
different. I think
get what
that's
you're saying.
different, though.
You talking
You
about like how Electro, like how he was before he became that?
Yeah,
I
he was-
think
that was
weird.
cartoonishly weird.
I think that being socially awkward and being cringy are two different things.
They can
I don't-
fall under the same
I mean,
category.
I think you can be both, but I think there's also a difference between the both. I would call like Jamie Foxx, like his Electro in Amazing Spider-Man 2, that was socially awkward. He wasn't cringy, he was just really socially awkward. The Toby that man was just cringy. I'm the sheriff around these parts.
Oh man.
Okay, first off, you have to admit.
Oh my god.
I will get his one-liners wasn't really on that, but Spider-Man is supposed to be that. A lot of that is comic relief in the movie. A lot of the comic relief in the movie is him being kind of clumsy or goofy or something like that. That's a lot of the comic relief in the 3 movies.
He's not, but
Peter's supposed to be cringy.
no, he's not. He's supposed to be annoying. He's not supposed to be cringy. That's also a difference.
Then we talking about annoying. Yeah, Tom hit that on the head because that nigga.
Okay, well, if that's the case, then with Tom, you can't make that argument that Tom is annoying,
Yes, I can.
or even have that cringy that
Not
vibe.
cringe. Yes, he
You
he
don't
is
have,
annoying.
as a Spider-Man, Tom Holland Spider-Man
Yes.
is just straight up action. There's no like
No.
energy to him.
Have
like
you
that?
have you not
He
his
had some pretty good one-liners, especially when he went to stop them dudes in the bank and he was making all kind of Avengers jokes.
Yeah, like, do you not know that like pretty much every movie he's been in, the features and his originals, he's annoyed like most people in that movie. When he first came,
metal armor?
that's what I'm saying. They literally told him like, bro, shut up. You talking too much. It's not this much talk when you're fighting.
Oh man,
They literally told him like, shut up. When he went to space, wasn't he like annoying Doctor Strange and Iron Man like on the ship? Wasn't he like annoying them when they went to space in Infinity War? When they like hitched a ride on the ship?
Yeah, he kept speaking, and Tony was like, "Just stop."
Yeah, and come on now. I don't have to explain how much he annoys Tony.
He came in. Hi, I'm Peter Parker. Doctor Strange. Oh, we're using
made up names. I'm Spider-Man.
Okay, I will admit that was funny. I'm not gonna lie.
Like come on, like Spider-Man. I feel like he's not supposed to be cringy. He's supposed to be.
Okay.
He's supposed to be annoying. I mean, I'm not saying he can't have like corny jokes. Corny, not cringy. There is a difference. He can have like corny jokes. That's fine, but I don't think cringy is the right. I don't think that's the right word.
No. I was gonna link that argument to Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man actually, because if we're gonna go off of the best kind of funny, friendly neighborhood Spider-Man vibe, the best friendly neighborhood Spider-Man vibe I got from the 3 of them was Andrew Garfield.
Really?
Honestly,
Yeah.
but actually, I would not mind the statement of Andrew being the best Spider-Man.
Like specifically Spider-Man.
Huh?
Like specifically Spider-Man.
Yeah, just specifically Spider-Man. Like,
I agree with that.
I wouldn't disagree with that. I won't disagree with that. I think it's Spider-Man, bro. I will say this. One of my favorite scenes out of like any of the Spider-Man movies is actually from the Amazing Spider-Man 2. At the end, when Rhino does come in and like that little boy, like he just like goes in front and like he looking at him and he just comes in, he like, hey man, what you doing? Like, I think that's a very wholesome scene, and I like that. It is like as soon as the little boy left, he just went right back to quipping. You know what I'm saying? Like that is one of my favorite scenes. So I wouldn't be too like mad if somebody said like Andrew Garfield has like the best portrayal of the actual Spider-Man persona.
You know, one thing I gotta ding Andrew for, I don't remember, like somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but and it's like Toby in his first Spider-Man movie, we got that scene of him trying to get his web working. Man, it pretty much breaks his back. And with Tom Holland, we get to see him like royally screw up that entire the whole movie up until the end. He just really screws everything up over and over again, having a hard. Does Andrew have anything like that? Like, I'm learning how to be Spider-Man.
Oh, yeah, he definitely does. Yes, he does.
Oh, yeah.
He definitely does. His girl died. His girl died, and her dad died. He definitely does. His girl died, and her dad died, and like back-to-back movies.
No, he said learning how to be Spider-Man, like controlling it all.
Oh, you mean like the control?
Andrew's part was like when he was in that, like, I want to say abandoned like facility with his skateboard. He kept trying to swing on like chains and stuff, trying to practice to see if he can get it done. Well, other than that, I think that's the only scene he had.
Well, I think that's also like a big difference when it comes to like what type of story it is. Like, you know what I'm saying?
I think you're asking if the training montage that superheroes have, if that's what you're referring to.
Was that what he's referring to?
No, I'm asking you if that's what you're referring to. Like I just got my powers, now I'm learning how to use it montage.
Like, I mean, wasn't that like the only scene he really had though in the movie?
Well, I think yeah, actually, but I think that's also a big difference because like that's what I'm saying, like a coming of age story versus like a kind of like already established like hero kind of thing. Tom is like becoming a hero. He's learning, like he's actively learning. That's literally like what all of his movies up till now has been. Is just him actively learning about what type of hero he wants to be. Andrew and Toby, their movies have more so been like, I got this power, I'm gonna be a hero, and then a lot of their movies are more so catered toward their Peter Parker lives more than like their superhero life.
I'm glad you bought that like the Uncle Ben story, because the aspect of with great power comes great responsibility that weighs heavily in Toby's and Andrew's Spider-Man. That doesn't really weigh like that in Tom's Spider-Man.
I disagree.
Tom's Spider-Man is like, I'm trying to become a bigger Spider-Man, and Toby and Andrew's is, I have a responsibility to be Spider-Man.
I disagree with that.
Really?
Okay. I kind of I'm kind of somewhere in the middle.
So yeah, let's dive into that. What you want to say, Nova?
I mean, that's more of really a fact. He doesn't really touch that concept at all in either movie. I don't think. No, I think he does. I think it's just not as blatantly worded as I have great power, so I also have great responsibility. I think he does.
Like in his very first scene in Civil War, he does mention that, and it's kind of a hokey way. They just didn't want to outright say it. But like you do get the vibe that, because he's been Spider-Man for a while at this point. So while I would argue that we don't get to see it, but we don't need to see it because he's been doing it for a minute.
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing, like, to me, with that statement, at least, like, the scene for Tom Holland, like, to get something even close to that being said, is probably when he was building his suit inside of the little, what do you call it, the carrier with Happy. Because Happy told him something along those lines. I forgot what he said, but it was like it was a Tony related thing.
Yeah,
it's probably like the only time you see that. Though.
I think to like combat this scenario, I guess I think you should compare like the Uncle Ben story to the Tony Stark story. I'm gonna call it that. Basically, Uncle Ben's dynamic with Toby and Andrew Spider-Man versus like Tony's dynamic with Tom's. Yeah. So I think you said what?
You can't exactly do that though, because for both Andrew and for Toby, Uncle Ben was gone within the first movie and like within the first few scenes of the movie.
Yeah.
So it's like that dynamic.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Only thing, I just think it's kind of disingenuous to use that against Tom, because it's already established it happened. We get a little homage to it before or after that. And then because we're not starting from he got bit by a radioactive spider, became a jerk, and his uncle died because of it.
Yeah.
We're starting from that already happened. He's been a hero for a minute. Hey, here's Tony Stark.
Yeah. Essentially, yeah. I think a big reason why like they haven't really had any homage to Uncle Ben, really. Well, I think they should have one maybe in the next movie, I guess. But I think the reason why is because like we already know. Yeah, you're right. We just already know. We've been through this 5 times. 5 times.
I disagree that they should even mention Uncle Ben at this point, to be honest. And the reason why I say that is because what makes Uncle Ben so important to Spider-Man is the fact that Uncle Ben is kind of like Spider-Man's father.
He was there for him and whatnot.
He was pretty much like his father.
He's a big motivation.
In the first two were Andrew Garfield and Tobey's Spider-Man. That was kind of like his dad. He was living with them. Well, yeah. And then his dad, and then Uncle Ben passed away.
Well, yeah.
And Tobey, when we first see him, he's not living with Uncle Ben. Uncle Ben is not a part of his life.
That's
and Tony became somewhat like the mentor / father figure, the man he was looking up to.
Well,
so then after Tony's death, Uncle Ben's death can't kind of overshadow what we already know to be his mentor's death.
Well, I don't think
so. I feel like you would try to do that, but it would kind of be, if you can't do it right, don't do it at all. It's kind of my argument.
But we already know Uncle Ben is dead and stuff.
Yeah,
we already know.
That's why I'm saying you don't have to. You shouldn't mention it we're too far past that.
Well, yeah, exactly. Like it can only come up. I think if I'm right, they only mentioned Uncle Ben like maybe twice, and counting his movies.
I don't even think they said like his. They didn't even say his name. It was more so just it was more so like just like a foreshadow, I guess, kind of thing. I don't know.
Like because I think the only thing I can think of that the 2 times they did it was in the Civil War movie, but they didn't even mention his name, like you said. You just knew that's kind of who he's talking about. And then the other one was when was it Far From Home? Yeah, it was Far From Home when Aunt May gave him Uncle Ben's suitcase.
Yeah. So I think, but this is the thing though, when it comes to that, God damn, did I just forget my point? Okay. The thing when it comes to that is that I don't think that you need to, you don't need to see that. You know what I'm saying? You don't need to see that to know who Spider-Man is. We've already seen that five movies plus any other iteration of a Spider-Man like game and or like a freaking TV show that you may have seen. Like, you already know all that. And I feel like that was more so the intention when they introduced him into the MCU, is that you already know who Spider-Man is. You know how he got his powers. You know his backstory. You know everything. You don't need to relive that again. You know what I'm saying? You don't need to relive that. I don't think it's a bad thing, and I think Tony Stark did become like a type of father figure for Tom Holland Spider-Man, but I don't think that Tom is a hero because of Tony Stark. I think that's very important.
So let me ask you guys this then: what exactly about the Peter becoming a superhero thing or arc, I'll just say, is better than his origin story?
Reword that.
Basically, what do you think? What about that in general makes you think that it's better than his origin story?
I think I don't know if it's necessarily better personally.
Yeah, I don't think it's different.
Because like you see it from the comics to the Tobey Maguire to the Andrew Garfield movies, he learns to be a hero basically on his own. Like that's at that point, everything is just him figuring it out as he goes. And with Tom Holland, it's like he gets to that point where he has been doing that. We don't get to see that. We just know he has been doing that. But then he gets to learn how to be and it should be mentioned too that, after the Civil War and all the superhero, all that, the superhero game changed after Captain America Civil War.
Yeah.
So like he was learning. I think it was a little different. I don't think it's really necessarily comparable because learning to be a superhero and then learning to be in a superhero post Civil War is like 2 different things.
I agree. I do agree.
And that's the thing. I feel like going back to my original argument with the lore of Spider-Man, because Spider-Man, of course, he was an Avenger. Spider-Man's been in a lot of actual different teams in the comic books, but this Spider-Man is so closely tied to the Avengers. Even his solo movies are tied to the Avengers. To some degree, like his villain in his last movie, Mysterio, that was due to Tony Stark. So even his solo movies are tied to the Avengers. But with Tom Holland, you didn't have that. It was just him. Like they weren't doing like superhero crossovers. Toby, yeah. With Toby, it was just him. They weren't doing superhero crossovers. So you had what I would consider the fuller Spider-Man Peter Parker lore than you do with Tom.
Why is that necessarily better?
Because growing up, key aspects and the key reasons why people like Spider-Man was because of, like I said, why people like Batman. People don't just like Batman because he's the greatest detective. People like Batman because a lot of them consider his villains to be the best villains ever. They like the Dark Gotham Knight and they like the Robins and the whole package. That's one of the key reasons why people like Batman. And that's one of the key reasons why I'm going to speak for myself personally. That's one of the key reasons why I like Spider-Man is because not just him as a character, but the world he lived in and how he interacted with that world.
So what, but like, okay, so you're saying this like about just Spider-Man overall. That's fine. But like,
why, like, for instance,
what about Tobey Spider-Man is not like, I'm not understanding like the point you're trying to make.
Okay. My thing is that, in Toby, in pretty much all three of his movies, you see he's trying to enjoy his life and enjoy being his social life. He didn't tell anybody he's Spider-Man. Nobody knows he's Spider-Man until they figure it out themselves.
Yeah.
Now you can say the same for Tom. People figure that out the moment you're introduced to Tom. Iron Man knows he's
not
Spider-Man.
true. That's Iron Man is one of the greatest minds.
You see Tom Holland, you already know Iron Man knows he's Spider-Man.
I will argue
that he's one of the greatest minds on the earth. That's not fair.
And I'm not saying that's not a bad thing, because that was leading into an Avengers movie. But I'm saying with Tom, you have his struggling social life that nobody can relate to.
That's not true.
And then his Spider-Man life.
That's a statement right there.
I gotta say too, though, real quick, let's not pretend that Norman Osborn didn't figure out who he was pretty quickly.
Yeah, he did.
Toby. And I gotta say too, though, I don't think that just because I'm not, like I said, I will not deny that Toby is a little closer to a lot of the comic book aspects, but original isn't always better.
Yes.
In fact, I will actually argue on the basis that it is because it's closer to the original, it's better. It's completely incorrect. Because I'll be real with you, as a fan of both Tom Holland Spider-Man's journey so far throughout the movies, and it's a little you could argue it's a little unbalanced because Tom has been in more films, even though he's had minor parts in most of them. But it's been more meaningful, I guess, watch his journey and development into Spider-Man.
Way more
than
meaningful.
Tobey's was, because you don't really get to enjoy that. You don't get to see him develop into Spider-Man. You do get that one montage that I mentioned earlier, but then after that, he's straight up just
he's just Spider-Man. He can just do everything Spider-Man can. There is no development in his journey to become a good superhero. Now he ain't got to be the best, just a good superhero. And I do want to go back to that point where you said people easily find out that Tom is Spider-Man or whatever. Pretty much every villain in Tobey's movies found out that he was Spider-Man at the end. First off, Doc Ock found out he was Spider-Man literally right before he died. Okay, well, Norman found out
in the comic books. Venom knows he's Spider-Man, so that was kind of comic book accurate.
Yeah, but what is there? There's okay. Who found out? Norman found out.
Norman found out. Harry found out. Yeah.
Sandman found out. Venom found out.
How do you think Sandman only found out because Venom told him?
That's fair, but I mean the point still stands that
people find out.
Okay, well, if that's the case, those are the villains then. Because if you're gonna make that argument, the Vulture found out and Mysterio found out.
Yeah, but the point, my argument is that that shouldn't even equate at all.
Mysterio.
No, I'm saying because nobody in his the only person in his like social life that knows he's Spider-Man is Mary Jane
and
Peter
and
Harry,
Ned.
Harry didn't find out to the second movie, and that's the end, and he became a villain in the beginning of the third movie.
Okay, and MJ didn't find out to the end of the second movie as well.
But even then, she had an idea that he was Spider-Man throughout that whole movie. She had an idea.
Yeah. But then you go to Tom Holland, who found out. Okay, so Tony knew in his very first film.
He's like the greatest mind on Earth. But continue.
Aunt May finds out at the very end of the actual Spider-Man Homecoming.
And she just walked in on him.
Ned, he did tell Ned.
Ned kind of caught him, but like that was completely out of his control. That was literally because he didn't expect Ned to be there. So when he climbed in his room and he was just sitting on the bed. So like that was completely out of his control.
Look, I'm not, and that's not bad that people know that he's Spider-Man, because in the comics you have a lot of people who know he's Spider-Man. I'm saying, when I watch Tom Holland, and I do like him as Spider-Man, there's a lot of aspects that he has as Spider-Man that work in a modern day time that I wish Tobey had, but they couldn't make it work back then. But why I'm saying that is because I feel like Tom Spider-Man is more on how can I be the best Spider-Man I can be? How can I be a better Spider-Man? And Tobey Spider-Man is how can I want a social life, but I have a responsibility to be Spider-Man.
I think I wouldn't even say a social life. I think it's more so of like just a romance. I think it's more so romance. I think Tobey's movies are more so catered toward romance.
I'll give you this, James. That's true, because you see Peter like failing his classes, can't keep a job.
Behind on rent. Like his life is terrible because he's Spider-Man.
And that was really great and all, but I don't think that makes it better than Tom Holland's Spider-Man story. I don't think it's inherently better. I think that's subjective, that's subjective, not objective.
I find more of like watching Tom go through the motions. Like you watch him get recruited by the big Iron Man saying like, hey, I would give you a chance to be an Avenger, this, that, and the other. Like you see these things, and he has a lot of real growth moments from like these things. Like I don't know, a big growth moment for me is when Iron Man, like I think it was at the end of Homecoming, when Iron Man was like, hey bro, you could be an Avenger. All you gotta do is walk through that door and you're an Avenger officially. That's a big growth moment because he denied that. You know what I'm saying? These coming of age stories, bro, like they're so good. And I figure that like people today of like our generation, we're like all in our 20s, right? So like people like us saying like you can't find that relatable. Well, of course not. You're not in high school. You're not in high school. But if you can actually go back to when you were in high school, and if you were in his situation, what would you do?
And I would argue, actually, people like us in our age bracket should be able to relate to that. I know I did, because sure, I'm 23, but that doesn't mean I know where I'm going in life or anything like that. You know? I'm still trying to find my way. I think most people are, and I feel like that's another reason why Tom Holland's Spider-Man hits so much harder.
I feel like when it comes to Tobey Spider-Man, it was more so just like it for him. It was more so he just needed to find a balance. Like he needs to find a balance between his social life and his Spider-Man life. He needs to find this balance so like, he can have good relationships, right? With Tom Spider-Man, it's so much more deeper than that. Like it gets so much more deeper than that. Especially like if you want to go from like Far From Home, from where he's kind of over the whole like developing into like his own hero. Now he's more so like, I have my chance to be Iron Man, basically. and now it's more so like, is this what I really want? You know what I'm saying? Like, have you ever like been how do I say this? Have you ever wanted to do something and then like once you do it, or once you got whatever you wanted, you were kind of like, I don't want to do this no more, or like, I'm not really sure if this is what I really wanted. Has that ever happened to anybody? Right. So
getting a job.
Well, yeah. Yeah. But like, yeah, I think that's very relatable. And I think that's like the overall message from at least like the beginning of Far From Home. It's just like, is this what I really want? So yeah, I think Tom is more relatable than Toby. I think he's way more relatable.
I will give everything you said is absolutely correct. I will give you that. If to make this better, I can say I will concede that Tom and Toby are equally relatable in different aspects of life, because we have to look at it like this. They're at different stages in their life at this point.
Okay.
It's not like, I mean, he's probably still in high school. It's not like Tom has rent to pay or bills. He doesn't have a job yet. And with Toby, we didn't really see him in high school like that. So the thing that makes Tom relatable, I feel like, is the fact that a lot of people, especially a lot of people in high school, young, early, like late teens, early 20s, they don't have it figured out yet. Mm-hmm. They want to be a big shot, and then they kind of don't want to be a big shot, and then it's like they don't know. And it's the mission of finding yourself that Tom's Peter Parker adds, that no other, the whole I'm trying to find my way. No other Spider-Man has really done that yet. So I definitely can relate to that. Like, a lot of people go to college, don't know what the hell they want to do. But they like, I gotta go to college.
Yep.
Well, yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, I think the real question when it comes to like, I guess, which story is better, when it comes to continue.
The reason I say Toby's Spider-Man is relatable is because, for instance, we all have like maybe siblings or a job or something like that, or things that happen in our life where we feel like we're the man who has to fix the problems, and we're trying to juggle a million things at the same time, but we can't let them go. Like, you have to go to work on time, but you got to study for this test, and you have to do this, and you have to watch your siblings, and you're responsible for making sure everything gets done right. And you kind of, you can't do it. You can't have it all. And I can relate to that too. So I feel like they're both relatable in their own aspects.
Well, yeah, I don't disagree. I don't disagree at all. I think in some aspects, Andrew is relatable too.
I can agree. I can concede so far in that I would Tobey Maguire and Tom Holland, I can equate them somewhat. Because I still think Tom Holland is better, but objectively I can agree, just because I mean, when it kind of boils down to it, it's kind of like, whose Spider-Man story, Peter Parker tale, do you relate with? Because I mean, that's really what what is the driving force of what a good Spider-Man character is can you relate with this? And if you can relate with both, then it really comes down to the other aspects. And I think Tom Holland just has some advantages over that. Personally, gives him the win to me over Toby.
So, oh yeah, continue. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I'm good. I'm done.
Oh well, I think. Well, we know that they're both relatable, right? And I'm since it's been a while since we've said his name. Freaking Andrew. I'm pretty sure I see there's no Andrew in this situation, so
he got lost in the sauce.
I see there's no Andrew, man. But
they just made him this edgy, angsty Peter Parker who rides a skateboard, and when he put on the suit, he was phenomenal. Okay, that was Spider-Man.
Yeah, like that was Spider-Man.
When he was without that suit, when the mask was off,
it just wasn't it.
It just wasn't it. Not to mention, and like this more has to do with the movie as a whole than the characters. It didn't help that everything else as far as a Spider-Man film needs was kind of lacking as well. you didn't really. I mean, I guess the whole Gwen Stacy death was actually probably the most spot on these Spider-Man movies have ever been. When
Yeah,
it comes
actually,
to his romance life.
Bro, I rewatched that scene the other day, and I jumped in my seat because when she hit the ground, bro, oh my god, bro,
Oh, that crack,
bro, that boom, I was, oh my god. That just wasn't it.
In Andrew's defense, I feel like his cool kind of Spider-Man, like I'm a cool guy, that could have worked if they would have said that this is like a college version of Spider-Man.
He was in college,
but
I believe.
I believe he's still like in high school.
No, yeah,
he's still supposed to be.
He was
graduating
because
high school.
Because they could have made Peter Parker just this cool nerd, and to be honest, I could have that could have grown on me, but the fact that they tried to make him this cool nerd but still get picked on, he's still this cool nerd that's being bullied all the time. Like, that's just not a good mix. You can't have both those things.
Yeah, it doesn't work. It's kind of it's counterintuitive.
Yeah, I think so Andrew is kind of out of this race. So now let's discuss who is better. Let's discuss who's better between Peter, but not Peter. What's that man name? Toby and Tom. There we go. I like how the tease.
Wait, before I want to defend Andrew a little bit more because I feel like after we leave Andrew, we're never gonna go back to him.
We ain't gonna go back to Andrew. Well, I think we can honestly say though, like as Spider-Man, as the Spider-Man persona, I give him the trophy. I'll give him the trophy.
Yeah, 100%.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like even his Spider-Man probably has a better emotional range.
Mm-hmm.
Like his range of emotions in the two movies, kind of, they go pretty far.
Yeah,
you know, that's a good point. Because not to like slam, I guess I'm hitting Tom and Toby with this one. They're like Toby, like 80% of his films was just moping, just like moping the whole time. And for Tom Holland, you don't really get to see him have a range at all. He's kind of just the same emotionally throughout most of those films.
Mm-hmm.
So as far as the range, what's his name? Andrew Garfield takes the cake for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
We're kind of making arguments that Andrew is the best Spider-Man, but we don't like him the best. So
like, he does. I think he does the best portrayal of of that persona. So I'll say that. That's pretty much it. Like it's the Peter Parker, because the thing with Andrews, he's kind of like him and Toby's movies are similar in terms of narrative when it comes to like they've really focused on a lot of the Peter Parker life. And the problem with Andrew is that he ain't a good Peter Parker. That's the problem. He ain't a good Peter Parker. When he put on the suit, the movie was perfectly fine. I could watch every scene with him in the suit and be perfectly okay. But a lot of his movie was more so just Peter Parker, and it wasn't good. So other than that,
one thing too that I really loved about the Homecoming movie was how, like, James reminded me of this when he mentioned what was it, the friend that I think he said that Andrew Garfield was more of a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man than the other two were.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I kind of agree to an extent, because like in the Homecoming movie, I mean, we do get to see him do a little bit of friendly neighborhood stuff, but we're mostly just told this is what he's been kept, it's used against him. Like, this is what Tony's making him do because he doesn't want him doing the big boy stuff.
Yeah.
So I can give him that too. He was more of a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, which is hilarious because they named the movie The Amazing Spider-Man, and there wasn't really much amazing about that movie.
Another thing about the way Spider-Man, first off, Spider-Man has the most, in my opinion, this is my opinion, but Spider-Man has the most unique signature, I guess, method of traveling than any other superhero.
Facts.
Swinging around skyscrapers is that's more unique than flying or gliding on something or running really fast. I mean, and that's cool. And that's something you really saw highlighted in the Amazing Spider-Man movies, especially the second one. That you don't see that much. I mean, in Toby's you saw a little bit, but it is not as good as Andrew's by far.
They made the swinging. It was like watching those skateboard videos with the GoPro when they go down those retardedly big hills. It was like that. It was an adventure. It was an adventure all of it on its own in those movies compared to what Tom Holland. You see him swing around. You don't really, but it doesn't mean anything. Toby does it. It doesn't mean anything. Andrew Garfield does it. It's like it's a whole other part of a movie. It's like the movie just dipped into some type of roller coaster stuff.
Yeah. But okay, so to avoid this video being like 2 hours long, I'm cutting it off in like 20 minutes, right? So let's just discuss Peter versus Tom. Who's better and why? I mean, yeah, that. One take, y'all. One take, no edits. Okay. Let's discuss who's better between Tom and Toby and why. Since we gave Andrew his clout, he got his 30 seconds of fame. We good. Okay, bye. We ain't talking about him no more.
All right, I'm gonna give it to Tom because I felt like first and foremost, you got to see that coming of age story just hit harder to me than Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man story did. Which Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man story was more true to the comics, but true to the comics doesn't necessarily mean better. I also feel like Tom Holland's Spider-Man movies, or Tom Holland's Spider-Man was just a better Spider-Man. Not just in terms too, and this kind of attributes more to the movie's direction, not just in terms of his quips, the jokes, the way he spoke, but the fact that I felt like his voice portrayed very well. He was like this nervous little teenager in a costume trying to be a man, which took me way back to the days with reading the initial Spider-Man comics, 15-year-old Peter Parker. And you got to see him he had some good feats, okay? Not gonna lie. I mean, Tobey Maguire Spider-Man didn't really he had one good feat. That was it. I think that the character was just stronger for Tom Holland's Spider-Man than it was for Toby or Andrew's. Not that theirs was weak. Well, Toby's was weak anyway. Not that Toby's was weak anyway. But yeah, I'd give it to Tom for sure.
Anybody else? Nova? Jeremy? James? Anybody want to go?
Yeah, I got something to say. I just didn't want to overtalk anybody else.
Go ahead.
But why I say Toby is because watching the three films, you have the three films make it abundantly clear that he is struggling balancing having somewhat of a normal life and being Spider-Man. You can clearly tell that being Spider-Man is a burden to him, and he feels responsible to be Spider-Man because of his uncle. And he's struggling to do so. So that makes me connect with the characters too. The fact that he's late for all his classes, he's behind on rent, he lives in a crappy apartment, and he's doing that because he feels he still has to be Spider-Man no matter what the situation is. And when he gives up his powers in Spider-Man 2, which is why Spider-Man 2 is like my favorite Spider-Man movie, when he gives up his powers, his life becomes great. His life, he almost has like a perfect life, but then he has to go back to being Spider-Man. And he even tries to go back to being, he failed until Doc Ock showed up, but he tries to go back to being Spider-Man because he feels like he needs to be Spider-Man. Spider-Man is his responsibility. So that's one of the key reasons why I'm gonna I connect with him. Plus his connections to his villains, I feel like are better than other Andrew has his connections, Tom has his connections, but like Spider-Man's connection to like the Green Goblin, that being like his kind of stepdad, and now this is damn near his brother who's trying to kill him. Like that, his connection to his villains, I felt were better.
That is cap. Oh my god, that's cap. That is so cap, man. Oh,
Actually, I don't think
Go
that
ahead.
that is such cap. I was gonna let everything you said be until you said that. That is cap. Toby's
the
connection.
only one he actually connected to was Vulture.
So you're saying that he didn't connect to Mysterio?
Vulture. He just knew who Vulture was.
No. Come on now. That's the girl. It's the girl he likes.
That's
dad.
no. That's when I say connection. I mean I like you. I have a relationship with you, but I have to fight you.
He did not have
He doesn't have that with Vulture at all in any way.
He doesn't
He
have. How did he have a connection
before he knew it was his girlfriend's dad?
How did Toby have a connection with Doc Ock?
He was his teacher.
He looked up to Doc Ock. He had conversations. Like Doc Ock was giving him relationship advice. Damn it!
In the movie, bro.
He was also his teacher.
He was his teacher. That's what you're going with. Do you look up to every one of your teachers?
No, but he did.
Dude, I don't give relationship advice to any of them. So no.
Come on.
But
okay.
You can tell that him and Doc Ock did have almost like a mentorish, like one of those teachers that goes like a little bit beyond being a teacher, like an older brother type teacher.
If you were talking about the Spider-Man from the PS4 game, I would fully agree with you. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about Toby. So
okay,
let me say this in rebuttal. So the statement you made, you said that you think Toby's villains, and Toby's Peter, they all had like some type of special connection with him. Now I think.
Well, I'm not saying all. I'm specifically mentioning the Osborns, but yeah.
Well, that's only like two. That's two people, and one of them really wasn't even a villain in the end. But so
Bill tried to kill him.
I think that's
and more than Tom, but keep going.
I think you're kind of like misjudging. I won't say that Tom's Peter had like a super connection to Vulture. They knew each other, and I mean, like, he met him, and he's kind of like trying to get on that with his daughter. So I'm not gonna say like, oh, it's like some super thing where they became like super best buds or something like that, or they had like a mentor relationship, because they didn't. But at the same time, you're not gonna tell me that there was no relationship there. It's not because yes, he did, because Peter did try to make a good first impression. Peter just found out that man was Vulture. He found out who he was and what he was doing. And then that also, if anything, created like a rift. I wouldn't even say a rift. It was able to create like a rift between them. Like I don't know how to explain this. Oh my God. I'm just not gonna say that there was nothing there, bro. I'm not gonna say it was super strong. I'm not gonna say that relationship was better than any of Toby's relationship with his villains. But I will say Mysterio's relationship with Tom was better than any of Toby's villains. Yeah. That's not
okay. So you're mentioning and I will give Mysterio first off, that was a great Mysterio. A wonderful Mysterio. But you the connection that everybody remembers the scene where Spider-Man had the symbiote and he came in Harry's apartment after he found out he was hooking up with MJ.
Yeah.
He was on dirt.
and Harry was kind of like rubbing it in his face because he remembered he was Spider-Man again. And they started having that fist fight in the living room or whatever. That like fist fight damn near between brothers. And what makes it so bad is because you saw them after Harry lost his memory, you saw them become close again. They were pretty much like high school brothers again.
I mean,
yes. And he got his memory back and he betrayed him. And that on top of that fight too.
I agree with that. My only thing about it is that was something that was established over the course of 3 movies to build up to.
Yeah.
Tom Holland does not have a consistent villain in all his movies yet.
I think
which could also be a fact.
I think that the thing with this is, though, You have to look with Mysterio. You need to look at Far From Home and take it kind of like how he was feeling like that entire movie in order to truly understand the relationship that was built up in that movie between Peter and Mysterio. So he was feeling alone. He was feeling like he had such gigantic shoes to fill and that he couldn't do it. Mysterio's entire plot was literally to get close to him. It was literally to get close to him so that Peter would, at the end of the day, entrust him with Edith, the glasses, right?
Can we get into that conversation?
A bond has. Oh yeah, okay. A bond has to be built in order for this to happen. A bond has to be built. You can't, and it's not a I just met you type bond. It becomes a strong bond because they're fighting together. They're almost dying. Well, allegedly, they're almost dying together. It's like when brothers go to war. You know what I'm saying? It's like you go to war with somebody. That changes you when you're fighting with people. So I don't think I really find it hard to believe that Tom did not have a strong relationship with Mysterio, because I don't think that's true. I think he built one up in a short amount of time. But I think that's perfectly possible.
I mean, but check out the scenario with that though too. Like Mysterio caught him at a moment of weakness, like a big moment of weakness.
Yeah, you're right. And it was all part of the plot. It was all part of the plot, but it worked.
I feel like even if you give I won't say the same scenario. Just give like a different scenario of like where Tony was actually alive. I don't think that relationship would have been like that.
Well,
Tom would have been weak.
Of course, but then that would, if Tony was alive, Tom. The events of Far From Home probably wouldn't even happened. Like, he wouldn't be feeling the way he was feeling if Tony was alive, because Tony's there. The entire purpose of Far From Home is Tony's dead, and this is how it affects Peter. That's the entire purpose. So I don't know. I feel like that bond that they built up is still just as strong as Toby's bond with any of his villains. I don't
know about that. The bond that he had with Harry was something special.
Okay, well, I'm not saying that's Harry, but you could literally not count Harry as a villain. Yes, they fought, but like at the end of the movie, he literally like came in and saved the day. So like
he was about to fight him. He was attempting to kill him throughout, like, I want to say about 90% of the movie.
You know what, low key, I feel like you can only really count Harry as a villain for half of 2 and 3. But even then, it's kind of like, because he spent most of the movie, like the whole first movie, that was Pete's boy, and for half of the second movie, that was Pete's boy, and then at the end of the third movie, that was Pete's boy. I don't really want to label him as a complete and total villain.
Yeah, like I really wouldn't call him a villain. It was
like, I will still label. I don't think that Tom Holland had a relationship with anyone as great as Toby had with Harry. Plus, it helps that Harry was played by the boy James Franco.
You right.
So I can concede that point. I just don't think that one relationship, because it's not like Toby's relationship with Norman was that great, or his relationship with Doc Ock was that great. And I'll be real, his relationship with Venom was ass. It was really
that was bad. That's a whole another story though.
I will agree to that. And I was only bringing that. First off, I felt that his connection with the first Green Goblin, Norman, was a pretty good relationship.
Okay, wait. Before you go into that, this video is getting very long, so we're gonna. I'll say this. Let's do like closing statements, and then like let's wrap this up. We can talk about this post talk, but like. I want a cutoff period, because the video doesn't end with a victor. You know what I'm saying? The video doesn't end with a victor. The video ends with whoever the audience decides, I guess. So yeah, final comments, people. James, you go first.
Okay, I like all 3 Spider-Mans, and I enjoyed all of the movies. Of course, not equally, but what makes me lean towards Toby, and not by a large margin either, because I gotta give Tom everything Tom does good, he does great. So I'm gonna give Tom all of his credit. But the reason I lean more towards Tobey is because I feel like I get more captivated in the Spider-Man universe, the world that he's in. As far as him and J. Jonah Jameson, which was the perfect J. Jonah Jameson, him struggling to pay rent, him struggling to stay in school. Everybody's around him acting like he's weird. Everybody's like, why are you late? Why are you distant? And he can't talk to anybody, so he kind of feels alone, but he's only doing it because he feels like he has a responsibility to do it. And to me, that's a huge sacrifice, because you can tell he doesn't desire to be Spider-Man, but he's doing it because he knows Spider-Man is needed. And I feel like that him taking on that responsibility really makes me connected to him as a Spider-Man. Not to say that all of the other Spider-Man, and I'm gonna specifically mention Tom Holland. Tom Holland's Spider-Man is at a different stage in his heroism. So maybe he will reach that, but he hasn't reached it yet. But until he reaches that, that's kind of why I'm leaning towards Tobey.
Oh, you said it right the first time.
Nah,
but that's you lucky this is like closing statements, man. I would definitely argue with you on one thing you said. Freaking Jeremy, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with what James said. Like what Tobey just went through, man. Like even off Relatable topic, it's like you can just feel it. You know, like he said, like Spider-Man is needed, but it's not something that he really want. But he knows that nobody else is gonna do what he's gonna do, and nobody else gonna go out there and fight crime like that. Nobody gonna be Spider-Man like him being Spider-Man. So yeah, I'm still gonna go with Tobey. That's my answer.
Last two. Whichever one of you guys want to go first.
Oh yeah, you can go ahead.
Okay. Well, what I will say is that I think based off of the examples that were given in this video so far, I'm definitely leaning more towards Tobey, and it's only because they did make a great point with him having a connection to all of his villains, or I'll just say a deeper, more I'll just say sincere connection with most of his villains. It does bring that sort of captivating feeling that I'm looking for having in a Spider-Man movie. So I'm definitely leaning more towards Tobey, but I will end off by saying I am very open to hearing what everybody else still has to say.
All right, Tom, I'm still my boy. I'm still leaning on Tom. I feel like the things that him and Tobey have in common, most of them Tom does better. The things Tobey does do better, he doesn't do better by much. But I feel like there's a lot of areas Tobey lacks in that Tom Spider-Man is superior in. I feel like he's a better quipster, first and foremost. That's great. Also, one thing that I appreciate is that you get to see more of how smart he is compared to Tobey Spider-Man. I think that his relationship with his villains was fantastic. What you had, I guess he only had two villains, to be entirely honest. His relationship with Mysterio trying to slide in and be that friend/mentor figure to manipulate him, it made it personal. Which I thought actually contrasts super nicely to Tobey's relationship with Doc Ock in that movie, because Doc Ock started as an honest-to-God mentor and friend, and then ended up going crazy later down the line. I thought that was a good parallel to make. But yeah, I just think that Tobey didn't carry the torch, or Tobey passed the torch, and then the torch was passed again to someone who just carried it much better. And no, again, I failed to mention Andrew Garfield, like it's been happening the entire video. But I don't think he's bad. I don't think any of them are bad. If I were to give them all in numbers, it'd be Tom at the top, and then, like, let's say he's a 10. Tobey would be a 9, and Garfield would be a 7, in my opinion.
That's funny. He's not even on an 8. That's funny.
Yeah, I got to skip over the 8 just because that his Peter Parker hits him really bad for me.
Are you done?
Yep, that's it for me.
Okay, so guess the last thing I gotta say is I'm definitely still Team Tom. Team Tom, you know. I do agree with the part of like I don't think any of them are bad. I can watch like all of their movies and you know still enjoy the movie for what it is, regardless of issues. But but I am still Tom. I just think Tom's portrayal of the character is like just I think it's just better. I think a lot of what happens in Tom's movies are more relatable than any of the other two. I think that as both Peter Parker and Spider-Man, he has like a very good balance of both. Yeah, it's not much to say other than that. If I had to pick an order, I guess it would be Tom, Toby, then Andrew. Mostly because Andrew just had a bad script in his movies, but I think that'll be another topic. So yeah, y'all. Other than that, that's basically it for the video. If you like this video, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and all that good jazz. Check the description box down below. I will link everyone's socials that was in this video down in the description box below. And other than that, I'll see y'all in the next episode. Peace.